Really neat. And if you watch those moments, you'll remember them more for the emotion than for the football. Of course, it's awesome to see the Saints and Drew Brees win that Super Bowl. And if you remember, the confetti was flying down. His son Balin was wearing the headphones with the confetti, and it was actually his son who was there with him, who was part of the process of him getting into the hall, which was awesome. But I love this element about sports, and I thought that Drew highlighted it so well. Sports have this uncanny power to unite and bring us together and help us heal. And whenever I talk about this, the obvious example, one of the most obvious examples, but the first one that comes to mind for a lot of people is New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. And you knew that Drew was going to talk about his adopted hometown. And he said, if you love New Orleans, it'll love you back. That's kind of what they say about New Orleans. But the fact that he took that responsibility so seriously, and he was, of course, a leader in the locker room from the moment he got there, even though he was new to New Orleans, even though he'd had the opportunity to go to Miami instead of New Orleans, coming off that shoulder surgery, of course, leaving San Diego, which was where he was drafted. But he took that responsibility so seriously as the leader, as the quarterback, and he determined that that team as a group had to help the city of New Orleans heal and be restored and regain its lifeblood and its heartbeat after Hurricane Katrina was so devastating. And I remember being in New Orleans, gosh, it was actually 2 years later. And I was there for a game, and there was still so much that had to be rebuilt. And there were still evidence of the damage that the hurricane had done. Remember, it even damaged the Superdome, and the Superdome had turned into a place for people who needed somewhere to go. It was essentially a house for refugees during that time. And it was such a dark time, and there was so much infighting politically after the fact. But it wasn't until the Saints returned to the Superdome to play football that it felt like that unity and that spirit was revived. And then, of course, you couldn't write a better movie script than the Saints winning Super Bowl 44, as he points to. And so I love that Drew Brees not only thanked all the people that walked that road with him, but also understood the significance of what his Hall of Fame career and what the Saints played in restoring a city, an entire population, millions of people who had either lost almost everything or who were devastated. And obviously, many people lost their lives too. Families were changed forever. The city was changed forever. And he talks about how often you have to lose what can be replaced to then understand the value and the significance and the priority of what cannot be replaced. And so those are life lessons, not just football lessons. But yeah, it really underscored what I feel about sports, and particularly football, because football happens to be something that we agree on in this country. One of the few things that we agree on. Somehow, sports bring us together. Somehow our passion for our favorite teams and our favorite athletes, they help us heal, because healing begins when we take care of one another. Healing begins and healing takes place when we are unified. So much divides us in this country, but somehow sports, the Saints, the Red Sox after the Boston Marathon bombing. And there are so many other examples of where sports have brought communities together across ethnic boundaries, language boundaries, cultural boundaries, all of the various ways that we are divided in this country. Sports have this inane power to help us heal. And New Orleans is a phenomenal example of that. It's probably the gold standard. And I love that Drew Brees did not overlook that, and that it touched him and his family and changed them for good as well. But also, you can tell what kind of a man he is, that he took that responsibility seriously, even though he wasn't from New Orleans, but he understood. He got it. The Saints got it. And I'm glad that's part of his Hall of Fame story, and now the Pro Football Hall of Fame overall.